Curtis Houck covers them for a living. He's a managing editor over at NewsBusters, and he joins us now. Curtis, good to have you with us, sir.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Vince. Good to be with you.
So the Biden campaign says that Trump is trying to incite violence. The media instantly takes the talking point and runs around with it and goes crazy with it. Surprised?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I wrote at NewsBusters today that this is like, President Trump's the guy with the flashlight and the media are the cat, or he's chasing him around the room. I mean, it is a hoax. That's what people are saying, and it is correct. ABC News, you had George Stephanopoulos out there saying what Donald Trump said this weekend was incendiary, and then John Carl said it was dark and menacing, even by Trump standards. NBC News, you had Valerie Jarrett's kid, Laura, saying that it's sparking controversy. What's funny is these people are upset like that Donald Trump is using a thesaurus by using the word bloodbath. This is what they would do on a daily basis. And I just have to address Michael Beschloss, by the way.
Yeah.
Him talking about free and fair election, the free and fair elections thing is funny because he said in July 2022 that that was going to be possibly the last free and fair election. And he predicted after January 6th that Trump was so unhinged he was going to use nukes. And just one more from November 2022, right before the midterms, he said our children could be, quote, arrested and killed if Republicans win, conceivably killed, he said. So for him to talk about, hyperbolic language and warning about that, I mean, that's just so good. That's an amazing sound.
How did we get to the point where so many mentally ill people are on television, though? I mean, and it seemed like they're pretty well paid to be mentally ill on television.
Right, and see, the thing is too, like I've been covering this for almost a decade and gotten to know some of these liberal journalists, and they're very nice people, some of them. But the moment the light goes on, they become completely different people, but the public doesn't know that. So that it's a performance art. Yeah, there's true believers. Like I would bet Rachel Maddow, Nicole Wallace, Joy Reid, people like that. Michael Beschloss definitely believes the stuff that they're selling. You can just tell their like veins are bulging in their eye. Faces are just like they're melting down. But, and the other thing that you pointed out, the reason that this hoax thing, folks should just kind of brush this off, it's distracting from the policy point that Donald Trump brought up.
Yeah.
And we found last year that it was about a 9-to-1 disparity, 992 minutes to 121 minutes coverage of Donald Trump and his Republican opponents, what they believe about policy versus the Trump trials and indictments. So it's almost a 10-to-1 ratio between policy versus, the indictments.
Yeah.
And that shows the media's priorities.
Well, I mean, if I was an auto worker and I heard all of this and I had a true understanding of everything that was going on, I'd be so far in Trump's corner, it's unbelievable. I'd be totally against Biden. Like, you're lying to me about this? He straight up said what would happen to my industry would be a bloodbath. I don't want that to happen. And you lie about it. It's just disgraceful. And to your point, I want to play some of this audio. This is all courtesy of Curtis Houck. You have audio of some of the news outlets today, purported news outlets, making the claim that Trump said something, quote, incendiary or dark. Here's George Stephanopoulos and Jonathan Karl.
We're at the latest now in the race for the White House. And the incendiary speech from Donald Trump at a rally over the weekend with praise for the January 6 convicts, attacks on immigrants as subhuman, and a warning of a bloodbath for the country if he's defeated. Chief Washington correspondent John Karl has the story. Good morning, John.
Good morning, George. Even by Trump standards, Donald Trump's speech over the weekend was dark and menacing.
Dark and menacing. Incendiary speech. Honestly, if you listen to the 1-minute clip that I played at the top of the show, it sounds like the most routine political statement that anyone would say. Not just Donald Trump, just saying, hey, if we let China take advantage of us, it'll be a bloodbath for our auto industry. We shouldn't do that.
Right. I mean, the media used the word bloodbath to describe layoffs, like mass layoffs,
yes.
Or when, in sports, when they talk about coaches being fired at the end of a season. That word is used all the time, but because Donald Trump used it and he kind of riffs, he repeats himself at times, when he's trying to really make a point, it's somehow, far worse because Donald Trump said it and the crowd laughed. Oh my gosh, this is so terrible. Yeah, it's very clear that if you actually listen to what he said in terms of policy, it makes complete sense. And the other thing, too, is because it's an electric vehicle and all the technology involved with that, it's a national security concern involving China. And that's also something else you don't want to open these can of worms, TikTok, that's just another issue where, the Chinese Communist Party is eating our lunch. And Donald Trump says, yeah, no, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
And for Joe Biden, that would be interesting. The other thing, the last point I'll make is Michigan. The reason that the media are skirting this issue shouldn't be lost as well. The fact that what state would be perhaps most affected by this? Michigan. And what are they trying to do in Michigan right now? They're trying to kowtow to the pro-Hamas crowd in Dearborn and the other communities there in and around Detroit. So they're already, just hemorrhaging voters there that might not support Joe Biden. To have a line out there from Donald Trump running about electric vehicles and that your industry is going to go bye-bye under Joe Biden is EV demands.
Yes.
That would be a blowout.
By the way, Biden, in terms of Biden's language, he's been far more provocative in every single way than Donald Trump ever has. Donald Trump talks about MS-13 murderers as animals, and the media goes, oh, he's saying immigrants are animals. No, he's not. Like, literally pay attention for 5 seconds. But Biden will say stuff like, MAGA extremists dominate the Republican Party. He's inciting his base to believe that his political opposition are literal extremists. I mean, for instance,
the Speaker, the former president, and the MAGA extremists are cut from a different cloth. They treat these folks. He
can barely get the words
out. They think
out.
they're a threat. They think that somehow we're going to go.
But Biden does this all the time.
What happens if you have a state changes the law saying that children who are LGBTQ can't be in classrooms with other children? Is that legit under the way the decision is written? What are the next things that are going to be attacked? Because this MAGA crowd is really the most extreme political.
Yeah, I mean, this too. One more.
Senator Rick Scott of Florida, United States Senator, who's leading the Republican National Senatorial Campaign Committee, released what he calls the Ultra MAGA Agenda. It's a MAGA agenda, all right. Let me tell you about this Ultra MAGA agenda. It's extreme, as most MAGA things are.
So in other words, like, he's being way more provocative than Donald Trump using a bloodbath analogy to describe the destruction of the American auto industry.
Oh, yeah, and you just rewind, Vince, to the State of the Union. What did he do when he began his State of the Union address? He talked about the threat of Nazism, i.e. the Republican Party, and then he also brought up the greatest threat to our democracy since the Civil War.
Yes.
So, again, he's drawing the Confederacy analogy, and the media reacted to that by saying he was fiery and he was blunt in making these opening comparisons. His speech in Atlanta a few years ago, saying that they're the new Jim Crow, Jim Crow 2.0, George Wallace. I mean, we could go on and on and on with the incendiary language.
Yes.
It's a case of projectionism. And the media don't care about it because they support this. When Joe Biden speaks that way, he is speaking to his base, which is the news media.
So how much of a game changer has Elon Musk been in these conversations on X? I've noticed that what ends up happening now is at light speed that people are providing the full context of all of these news events on Twitter. And in fact, there are these community notes that appear underneath these lies. So when, say, Joe Scarborough tweets a lie out, suddenly, boom, there's a fact check right underneath it. And he looks like a complete idiot, to the point that he deleted his own tweet yesterday, accusing Trump of advocating for an actual bloodbath in America. How much does Elon play into this?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, first of all, in those tweets, if you're subscribed to get Elon bucks, Twitter monetization, that post is defunded. You can't make money based on that tweet if it's community noted. So there's a financial incentive, and I also think too, giving power to the people to write community notes. More than just the gatekeepers, the so-called fact checkers, the people that worked under the previous regime at Twitter to be able to write community notes. The American people are really smart. There's smart people out there on Twitter. We make fun of Twitter all the time, but there's a lot of smart people on there. And, the idea that only certain people can be fact checkers, like, PolitiFact and Snopes, to tell us what's true and what's not true, it's just a complete farce. They want us to think we're, speaking of suckers and losers, they want us to think we're suckers and losers, and we need to listen to them. That's one of my favorite things, I think, maybe about Elon's reign on Twitter, the fact that community notes has been opened up to a much broader base of people, and that people can vote on it. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's been a meaningful game change, and Elon, over the weekend he was getting more and more explicit about what needs to happen now. He says we need a red wave or the country's done. He said so. It's very interesting to see his involvement in all of this. Thank you very much, Curtis Houck over at NewsBusters. As always, great to talk to you. Thanks for keeping an eye on all this craziness.